Hello and welcome everyone to Varsity Tutors Virtual Summer Camp. I'm Brian, and if you're like me, you can't wait for Shark Week to start. It starts a week from Sunday, and all of us at Varsity are anxious, and so we just figured we'd get an early start. We asked our good friend Paul Gelder from Discovery Channel to give us an early start to Shark Week, so he's going to talk to you about all he knows about sharks, which is a lot, in just a little bit. Now, before I hand it over to him, want to make sure you guys know we want to keep this interactive. Paul has been bitten by a shark, but he himself doesn't bite. So ask him questions. He's going to ask you some questions to find out what you know about sharks. Now, there's thousands of you here, so we can't allow you to respond with your jaws. But if you check the great white box to the right of the video panel, you'll see opportunities to chat. Ask questions as you have them. We'll spend the last 10 minutes or so answering your questions. If you put your name on them, then we'll know who asked and be able to personalize it a little bit. Also, make sure you've got a camera nearby right before we do Q&A. So in about 30 minutes, we're going to have an opportunity to take a shark selfie with Paul. And at that point, if you're able to upload it to Instagram and tag Paul and tag Varsity Tutors, you'll be entered to win your very own shark autographed by Paul. All right, now I promised myself beforehand I would get through this intro without singing Baby Shark, and I'm almost to the finish line. So let me introduce you to your teacher for today, shark expert, Paul Gelder.
Hello, mate. How you going? How's everyone doing out there? Are you having a good time?
I think your mask is still on, Paul. We're above water today.
What? The mask?
Get the mask. It's easier to hear. You can breathe. It's oxygen.
I thought we were teaching these guys about sharks, Brian.
It's well, they're all above water, and it's probably easier for them to understand.
Gotcha.
Pictures underwater.
That's probably a good idea to learn about sharks on the surface first. That way we don't have to buy more robot hands if they get bitten off. Smart man. All right, so everybody, welcome to the lesson for today. I'm so glad that you all came along to join me to learn about sharks. And we have a few things to get through today. One of them is, if you can see the agenda, is to meet me. How you going? And then we're going to go through some fun fin facts. We're going to talk about some really cool things involved with sharks. And then we're going to learn how to love sharks and why to love sharks and why they're so lovable. And then we're going to touch on how you can help as well, because everyone wants to help sharks. As the great Steve Irwin once said, if someone loves something, then they'll want to protect it. So I'm going to help you love sharks, so you want to help me protect them as well. And then, like Brian said, we're going to do some shark selfies. So that's going to be fun. We'll be able to do some Q&A. And I also mostly get called a shark diving expert on Shark Week, but I'm sure there's a few budding shark experts out there as well. So I'm going to run a little question by you and see about the big brains out there in the world. So we're going to start with a question about bite force, I think. And which shark do you think, pound for pound, meaning if the sharks were exactly the same size, which shark has the most powerful bite? A, the hammerhead, B, the whale shark, C, the great white shark, D, the bull shark, or E, the tiger shark? Well, there's already questions coming in. There's already answers coming in. We've got great whites. We've got tigers. There's a lot for the hammerhead. The whale shark is getting no love. I can't fool you guys, can I? All right. Well, okay. I'm going to call it there. And I'm going to say, everyone that said bull shark, you won. So the tiger shark, well, the first one was the hammerhead shark. So the hammerhead shark actually has a flat down jaw. So it doesn't have a terribly strong bite. They usually swim over the surface of the sand looking for stingrays and things like that. So not a terribly strong bite. The whale shark, as you might know, is a filter feeder. Now, whale sharks don't even have any teeth, so they're definitely not on the list. The great white shark, this is where I got you. Now, the only reason the great white shark doesn't have the strongest bite is because we said pound for pound, so they're the same size. So if a great white shark was its full size of anywhere from 16 to 22 feet, it would definitely beat the bull shark. But because they're the same size, the bull shark is the winner. And the tiger shark, a lot of people said that as well, but the tiger shark is quite ferocious and they eat a lot of strange stuff that we're going to get into later, but it just can't compete with the bull shark. Now, I know this for a fact. It has a terribly strong bite. And I've had the opportunity to learn about all of these sharks over the years, fortunately, because I get to work on Shark Week on Discovery Channel. And every year I get to meet new scientists, new shark diving experts, new shark cameramen, and they've taught me so much about the sharks that it's really just gets more and more interesting every time I do it. So where are we now? We are going to, well, my screen's just all over the place. Where did you go, Brian? I'm going to bring up my Zoom. There we are. So the thing about sharks is the more that I learn about them, the more I realize how much more there is to learn. They're such complicated creatures. They're so hard to study that scientists don't even know everything about them. But we do know a few things about them. Now, I'm going to give you a little quiz, and you let me know which one of these answers you think is a lie. All right. Which one is the lie? A, sharks grow and lose over 1 million teeth in their lives. B, sharks have been around since before the dinosaurs. C, sharks even attack each other before they're born. That's crazy. D, sharks never go to sleep. Or E, sharks don't have bones. Now, there is a lot of you out there. These answers are coming in thick and fast, like a Mako. A lot of you are saying the lie is sharks never go to sleep, and there's sharks don't have bones. But it seems like you guys are pretty clever. Most of you are getting it right. The answer is sharks grow and lose over 1 million teeth in their lives. That is a lot of teeth. That is actually too many teeth. Sharks will grow and lose probably over 30,000 teeth in their lives, which is a huge amount. But 1 million is too much. They'll replace their teeth about every 2 weeks, actually. Sharks, the answer B, sharks have been around since before the dinosaurs, is true. They have. Sharks have been around for over 400 million years. They've been around before dinosaurs. They've even been around before trees, which is crazy, right? The answer C, sharks even attack each other before they're born. This is true. This is called, I can't remember. It's a really long word, but some sharks are cannibalistic, in utero cannibalism. So that means that there's a whole bunch of sharks that are inside the shark mother's belly, and sometimes they're from different shark dads. And it seems scientists think that the sharks will attack the other sharks from other dads, but they don't attack the sharks from the same dad until there's only maybe one or two left, and then those sharks are born, keeping that shark daddy's bloodline strong. Now, D, sharks never go to sleep, is very true. Sharks do sleep. Sharks have been caught sleeping on the bottom of the sand in rock holes. We've even actually filmed great white sharks swimming with their mouths open. And the reason they do this is to get the water and the oxygen through their mouths and over their gills. And so they go into a slow rhythmic pattern, just swimming mid-water, nice and steady, getting some quick cat naps. The last one, sharks don't have bones. Sharks do not have bones. The shark skeleton is actually made of cartilage. And this is so that sharks can be very agile in the water. The cartilage is quite bendable, so they can turn really quickly if they need to attack something. It's also lighter, so they can come up to the surface. But the only reason we only find sharks' teeth and not skeletons is because they don't have skeletons. The salt water in the ocean breaks down the cartilage, and that's why we only ever find sharks' teeth. Isn't that cool? It's amazing, right? So we have so much more information, so much cool stuff about sharks to tell you. Some sharks, I don't know if you know this, but some sharks give birth to live young and others lay eggs. Now, sharks like the great white shark, they're vivoviparious, I believe it's pronounced, vivoviparious. What that means is they'll have eggs inside their stomach and the sharks will grow in them, and then they'll hatch out of the egg inside the mother's tummy, and then they'll get born. And so that is a live young. And other sharks like the leopard shark, the nurse sharks, a lot of the sharks that lay on the bottom a lot of the time, they lay eggs. And I used to find two different types of eggs in Australia. We used to find a curly spiral one, which I didn't even know what that was when I first found it. I had to learn. And then there's another one, it's a flat one. And these are nicknamed a mermaid's purse because that's what people thought they were in the olden days. And if you find them on the beach, you should pick them up and look at them against the sun, because sometimes there'll be a baby shark still inside it and you can throw it back into the water and maybe it'll still survive. But most of the time there won't be a shark inside it because the mummy sharks lay them on the bottom, attach them to a rock. And as the shark comes out of the egg, the mermaid's purse will set free and come ashore on the sand. So, you know, we get to find things, remnants of sharks just walking down the beaches exploring sometimes, which is very cool. Another fact we got into already is sharks are older than trees. But have you any idea how humongous sharks can get? And also how small they can get? Now, sharks can be as big as 60 feet long. That is enormous. That is like a swimming pool that you would swim laps in at swimming training. That is enormous. And that's the whale shark. That's the biggest shark on the planet, in the ocean. Also, we have the dwarf lantern shark, which can, as big as it gets, be about 20 centimeters. So that's really small, but the juveniles, they'll fit directly in your hand. And now the dwarf lantern sharks, they're only found in 2 places in the whole planet. And for the smallest shark in the world, they can go awfully deep as well. Now, they're only found in Venezuela and Colombia, and they're found deeper than 250 meters deep. Now, that is amazing. I've never dived that deep. I don't think I would live if I went that deep. But how amazing is it these tiny little sharks can go way, 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 way deeper than we can, and we ever will be able to, except for in submarines. Now, that's what I love about sharks. They're so interesting. There's so much to learn. There's so many different types of sharks. Did you know there's over 400 different types of shark species? That's going to take a lot of time to learn all about them, let me tell you. So we've got our work cut out for us today. Now we're going to move on now to a really interesting fact. This is a thing called a dermal denticle. Now, who knows what that is? Without looking at the screen, tell me what it is. Dermal denticle. I can't get it past you guys. Yep, dermal denticles are the skin of the shark. They're very teeth-like. And we have been studying dermal denticles for quite some time because they're so incredibly resilient and resistant. So they're resilient to damage because they're tough, and they're resilient because they protect the shark's skin. But one of the greatest uses we have found for them is for being able to create man-made objects that can move through the water just as efficiently as a shark. And one of those things is the Olympic swimming suit that came out a whole bunch of years ago. Now, scientists made these swimsuits. They created these tiny little shark skin dermal denticles, and they embedded them all over the swimming suits. Now, these swimming suits were so good, the Olympics banned them because they made everyone swim too fast and they thought it was unfair. That's how fast sharks can swim. So fast, it's illegal in the Olympics. Now, that is very, very cool. Now, one of the sharks, the whale shark that we touched on just before, actually has tiny little dermal denticles on its eyes. Isn't that crazy? Sharp little bristles on its eyeballs. And scientists think that that's because the whale sharks swim so slowly and they've got the eyes way out on the side of their head that they want to protect them from getting bacteria and parasites and stuff on them. So they've got little tough dermal denticles on them to protect the eyes. Now, there is a shark that would benefit greatly from that. Can anyone tell me what that shark is? Oh, I'm hearing crickets now. No one knows. Probably all of them. Yeah, all of them maybe. The Greenland shark. Now, does anyone know what the Greenland shark is? Where does it come from? Of course, it comes from Greenland, and it exists under the ice of Greenland. And this is the oldest shark in the world, but mostly they're all blind because they have little parasites that are called copepods, and they live on the shark's eyeball. Now, that sounds a little bit painful. I don't think I'm going to go swimming in Greenland, but they seem to live just fine. And these sharks are enormous. They get as big as great white sharks, and they're blind. So I wouldn't recommend you go out swimming in Greenland. You might get a blind Greenland shark swim directly into you thinking that you're a fish. So just be aware of that if you're swimming under the ice in Greenland anytime soon. You know, be careful. And there are so many parts about the shark that are interesting. Every part about the shark is interesting. Now we're going to touch on the nose, because the nose knows. I know I said it. But I'm going to quiz you again, and I'm going to wait for your answers, and hopefully you're going to get it right. Now, this is a tough one, I know. You know, the shark's nose isn't always the part that we like to watch on Shark Week. It's usually the tails, right? Yeah, that's what I thought, the tails. The tails are so interesting. But let's go through it. All of the following are true of sharks' noses, except for which one? A, each of a shark's nostrils smell independently, which means that they can smell from either nostril. B, sharks breathe and smell through their noses. C, sharks can smell certain animals' blood from miles away. D, sharks can tell which direction a smell is coming from. E, if you're attacked, punching a shark in the nose can stun it long enough for you to get away. Now, hit me with your answers. There's a lot coming through already. You guys are way better than I am at the keyboard, but you know, I can only use one hand because this one doesn't type very well. So you're a little quicker than I can be. Let's see. Let's go through them. Geez, we've got a lot of good answers there. I see some right ones and I see some wrong ones. I see some funny ones that aren't even on there. What are you doing? You're just making up your own answers. All right. The final answer is sharks. Where is it? Oh, sharks both breathe and smell through their noses. Come on. I think we all know that sharks don't breathe. What they do is they open their mouths and they allow the water to go into their mouths and then over the gills. And inside the water are tiny little particles of oxygen. And inside the shark's gills, they have tiny little capillaries that allow the tiny little particles of oxygen to go into them, into the blood. And that's how sharks get their blood. It's really, really interesting. I don't know who was the smart big brain to discover that, but they are very clever. All right, so which other ones do you think are pretty interesting? I reckon a shark's nostril smells independently is amazing. That way, the sharks can detect which way the smell is coming from. And I've seen this with mako sharks in New Zealand. What they do is they swim from side to side like this, and they're honing in on the direction of where we've been putting out our chum line, because they come sometimes from so far away that if they went off track, they might lose it very easily. So if they go off track, they swing their head back in and the other nostril picks it up and then they're back on track. Really, really amazing. So the other ones were sharks can smell certain animals' blood from miles away. I know that. I think we all grow up hearing that the sharks can smell a drop of human blood in 10,000 leagues of ocean, but that specifically is not true. Well, it might be true, but they don't react to human blood. And I found out this last year when I was in the Bahamas filming for Shark Week. We did a show called Laws of Jaws 2. And one of the things that they asked me to do, which my friends and my mum were not very happy about, was they asked me to drain half a liter of my own blood into a bag and then jump off the back of the boat, swim 20 feet away from the boat. And there was tiger sharks on the bottom. There was hammerhead sharks on the bottom. There was bull sharks on the bottom. There was lemon sharks on the surface. And then they wanted to pop my bag of blood. And so obviously I said, sure, no worries, let's do that. And so I went out there and they had a couple of cameras watching for the sharks to see what they would do. And I pulled out my knife and I stuck it in the bag of blood and I ripped it open and I was surrounded by a big plume of my own blood. And the sharks did not do anything. They didn't care. They're just not attracted to human blood because it's not the food that they're used to. The funny thing about sharks, just like us, we kind of know what we want to eat. You know, we like hamburgers and apples and lollies and all that sort of stuff. Sharks like fish and eels and rays and sometimes octopus. They don't really like us and they know the blood. So they didn't attack me that day. But then my friend threw a bucket of fish blood off the back of the boat while I was swimming towards it. And the sharks definitely smelled that and they went into predatory mode. And I had to push off the noses and get out of the water that quick, like a cartoon character running on the surface of the ocean. They were all laughing at me very, very loudly, which I didn't appreciate, but I'm still here, so it's all good. Now, let's look at the next one. If you're attacked, punching a shark in the nose can stun it long enough for you to get away. This is true. Now, often sharks aren't attacking. What they're doing is they're having what's called an exploratory bite. Because sharks don't have hands or even robot hands, the poor things, they use their mouths so that they can feel things out. They work it out. I've seen baby great white sharks coming up from under the water, breaching the surface, and there's a bird sitting there. And they come up and they grab it and they put it in its mouth. And then they realize, I don't really want bird for dinner today. And then they open their mouth and the bird flies away. So they're just very, very curious. And a lot of the times they're not shark attacks. They're just exploring. It's just a shame that they have such sharp teeth and we have such soft skin. And so, yeah, but if you do get bitten like me and the shark doesn't want to let go like me, then your best bet is to go for the nose, stick your finger in its eyeball like you do to your little brother and sister when they're being naughty. I mean, no, don't do that. Don't stick your fingers in your little brothers and sisters' eyeballs. Put them under the nose. Put your finger in the shark's eyeball, punch it in the nose, grab it by the gills. They're all the soft spots. So if a shark was attacking you, which it probably won't, that's what you could do to survive. So pretty interesting shark facts there. We're going to go on to some crazy stuff. Like this blows my mind. These sharks are like magicians. They don't even need to see the fish to know that they're there. How? Like, why? I want to be able to do that. Can you imagine walking around your house or the neighborhood with a blindfold on and knowing how to get to McDonald's? That would be a cool trick. You'd be a famous magician. Sharks know how to do that. They have a sixth sense. They have a thing called the ampullae of Lorenzini. I know it's a very long name, but it's very simply electromagnetic reception. Now, what these are, they're little holes. You might see when you're watching Shark Week, sharks have little dark holes all over their nose. Now, those holes are filled with little gel sacs, and inside those gel sacs are little hairs. And every single living thing on the planet emits an electronic signal. Even you, like every animal, even the television, even our phones, even the computer, every living thing has an electromagnetic signature. Now, the little gel sacs and the little nose can detect those electro signals through the ocean. It's really, really incredible. You might not think this, but things travel very well through the ocean, electronic signatures and even sound. Did you know that sound actually travels through the water better than it does above? Yeah, crazy, right? And so sharks have this incredible ability to be able to detect their prey really long way away. And then on the sides of their bodies, they have these things called lateral lines, and they basically do the same thing as well. They're very sensitive and they can pick up minute movements in the water. And what they're searching for are little flickers like that, because that means that fish is in panic, or maybe there's a sick fish that it can go and get. And so whenever we go in the water diving, we're trying to stay really calm, and we move slow, and we're not thrashing about, because we don't want to turn the sharks into predatory animals. We want them to be calm and relaxed and curious, which is just, that's their natural state. So we don't want to get them angry, so we stay calm. Now, the hammerhead shark also has this electromagnetic reception, but it has it to just such a huge degree. Now, if you know what a hammerhead shark is, you might know why, because their heads are humongous. They look like a hammer, and their eyeballs are out on the side. And what that does, it allows them to have like GoPro 360 vision, because they're on the sides, but they stick out a little bit. So they have a little dome on the end, and they can see all the way around their body. But you wouldn't think so when you're diving with them, because whenever I get in the water with them, they decide to swim directly into my face. I just think they're too busy looking for fish on the bottom, because they use their head and their ampullae of Lorenzini along the breadth of their head, scanning the bottom, looking for stingray. And I've seen them doing this, and I just think they're so busy looking for food, they forget to look where they're going, and they always swim directly into me. You have to grab them by the head, because they're really hard and really big, and you just push them away, and they go off looking for some more stingrays. Now, when I was on a shoot once, we were testing whether super strong magnets would make the hammerheads go away. We were going to see if we could create something that would stop sharks from coming in to bite people. And so we tried some super magnets, me and my friend, Dr. Craig. And so we made these fake stingrays, and then we put really high powered magnets in them, and we put them on the bottom, and then we waited for the sharks to come in and like detect them and see if they would eat them or not. The only problem was, I don't use this hand for diving. I use a steel hook so I can grab onto things. And my steel hook got stuck to the magnet, and the hammerhead shark was coming in to eat the magnet. And so it got a little bit close for comfort. I finally got it off, but the shark didn't want to go near the magnet, which was amazing. Every stingray we put down there, these are fake stingrays we made. Every other one, it picked it up, it ripped off the tail, because the tail has the barb, and then it swam away with the stingray. But the ones with the magnets in it, it didn't really like. And I think it was affecting its ampullae of Lorenzini and making it feel uncomfortable. So there's a bit of research going in now to look at how magnets can protect people from sharks and sharks from people. Pretty cool, huh? And the reason we want to do that is because we need sharks. They're just so very important. They're so incredible. They're so amazing. They are aquatic athletes. Now, which shark do you faster than Usain Bolt, faster than any human that's ever existed? I'm seeing a lot of right answers. I can't get it past you guys. That's right. It's the mako shark. Now, mako sharks are so fast. They have been clocked out. Well, the problem with the mako shark is they're so fast, it's hard to find out how fast they are. And so they've tested it out, and they found that a juvenile shark, so this is like a teenager shark, a teenager mako shark was timed going from a dead stop to 100 feet, which is 30 meters, in 2 seconds. Now, I don't think I could swim that fast, even with my shark denticle suit on. That's amazing. I think my best time for 20 meters in the pool was about 20 seconds. They do it in 2. This is amazing. And that's a juvenile. Imagine how incredible it would be if we could time a full-grown mako shark. These things get to almost as big as great whites, but not quite. About 11 foot. 11, 12 foot is about big as they get. But they're so incredible. They're so fast. They can jump so high out of the water. And they don't often need to do this. Most of the time they're doing it when people are fishing them and they've got a hook stuck in their mouth and it hurts so much and they're so scared, they're jumping out of the water, trying to get away. And so they've seen them, some people have said they've seen them jump 20 feet out of the water. Now that is high. That is higher than any human being and any other shark. Maybe not as big as sailfish, but the reason the mako shark needs to be so quick is because it eats the fastest fish in the world, the billfish and the sailfish. Now, these are the ones with the big, long spike on their head. And I'll tell you what, I wouldn't want one of them running into me. I've seen videos of deep sea divers getting skewered through their wetsuit by a billfish and it can't get out. And they had to crawl back into their little underwater submarine and pull the shark bill out. That would be really scary. So I don't want to do that. But that's why the sharks, the mako sharks, have to be so quickly. And that's why they have those really scary looking teeth. So when they catch up to them, their teeth come out and they curve backwards like that. So they grab onto the billfish and they just close their mouth. And the billfish can't get away unless the shark wants to open its mouth. But even then, the teeth are curved so far back that sometimes they open their mouth and they can't get out. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. One of my friends, Andy from Shark Week, said it looks like what did he say? It was a cascade of razor blades coming out of their mouth. Now, I don't want to get bitten by that, but I've swum with mako sharks quite a few times now, and I found that they're quite curious. They're very protective of their food, but once again, they're just not that interested in human beings. And so, we'll give them a pass, I think. Don't go out and catch mako sharks. As nice as it is to see them jumping out of the water, we don't really want to cause any other animals pain because we wouldn't want it either. Can you imagine having a big steel hook stuck through your mouth and dragged around the park for a while? That is no fun. And so we don't do that to sharks either because we need them. They're really, really important animals for the ocean, for the land, but they are weirdos. And I'm talking about the tiger shark now. They are weirdos. Now, I don't know what the weirdest thing you have eaten is. Maybe Lego, maybe boogers, maybe, I don't know. I can't imagine. There's so many weird things but I bet you haven't eaten anything as weird as a tiger shark. Did you know that there was a car tire found in the belly of a tiger shark? They're such weirdos. I read an article that said they caught a tiger shark in Australia that had porcupine spines in its stomach. We don't even have porcupines in Australia. It must have swum a really long way unless they got echidna spines and porcupine spines mixed up. But I don't know if I'd want any spines in my tummy. I feel like that would hurt a lot. But a tiger shark, they'll eat it anyway. There was actually a bag of money found in a tiger shark's belly. Now, I don't want you to go and start cutting open tiger sharks to find money because this was a very rare occurrence. They're not all like an ATM. So give them a pass there, but they keep going. They keep eating weird stuff. They ate a fur coat. The fishermen found a lawnmower engine in a tiger shark's belly. How did it fit it in its mouth? That's a big engine. I don't know how wide you can open your mouth, but I don't think I'm going to be able to fit any engine in my mouth or my belly. There was a shark from the 16th century, hundreds of years ago. They found a full suit of armor in the shark's belly. That must have been a very, very large shark or a very little knight. Fortunately, there are no more knights anymore and no more suits of armors getting stuck in the pooper of tiger sharks. Only parts of Paul. Well, not a tiger shark. I got eaten by a bull shark. But, they do like to eat tasty things, and I guess I'm just tasty. But I kind of think maybe the shark either spat me out or it choked on my leg and my hand because, I don't know. I don't know if I want a shark swimming around with my hand and my leg in its stomach. That's kind of weird. I don't know. You wouldn't want that, would you? Nah, I didn't think so. That's a little weird. But that was a bull shark. That was about 11 years ago now. And the funny thing is that I never really got mad at the shark because I knew that the sharks were in the ocean. And so I chose to go into the ocean. And I was really, really scared of sharks. And I was even more afraid of public speaking, which is weird because now I'm a shark diving public speaker. And so I've been fortunate enough to overcome two of my greatest fears. And what that taught me was that all of us can do that. We can actually turn our greatest fears into our greatest strengths if we decide to. You know, that's what it all comes down to, whether we want to or not. We get to choose. That is the greatest thing about us as human beings. Our greatest power is our choice to choose. What do we want? And so I learned a lot about sharks because I had to, because everyone in Australia heard about my shark attack and they knew that I didn't blame the sharks. So they wanted to know why, and they wanted to know what I thought about other people that got bitten by sharks. And so I didn't want to go on television and just make stuff up and sound like a dummy. So I had to learn a lot about sharks. And I got onto the internet and I got onto Google and I learned so much about sharks. And I realized that they have far more to fear from us than we do of them. Now, what do you think is scarier? Sharks or our world and our oceans without sharks? I know it's a tough one. I used to think that if we killed all the sharks, then we could just go swimming in the ocean and we'd be safe and we'd have nothing to worry about. But then I learned about how important sharks are to our oceans. They make such a difference keeping our oceans healthy that if we wipe them out, the oceans might collapse and the ecosystems might die and every bit of life in the ocean might die, and then we might die as well. It's kind of like a game of Jenga. You know that game where they have the tower with the blocks and you try and pull out as many blocks without it falling over? Sharks are kind of like one of those bottom pieces. If you can pull out maybe one or two bits, but it becomes really unbalanced and the whole structure is threatened with falling over. Now that's the same with our oceans and the same with our planet. We have to be very careful about the things that we remove. Sharks are very vital. They're known as what's called a quaternary consumer. This means an apex predator. I know they say that a lot in Shark Week, apex predator. That means that they're the top of the food chain most of the time. There is an animal that eats great white sharks. Now, does anyone know what that is? I know it's a tough one. It's a tough one. My buddy Andy calls them sea pandas. Can you guess? Yeah, I think I gave it away. That's right. Orcas, also known as killer whales, they kill great white sharks. And great white sharks in South Africa started going missing a couple of years ago, and the scientists couldn't work out why. And so they put their big brains together and they started working out, and they discovered great white sharks washed up on the shoreline, and they had a surgical split down their bellies. And they thought, but orcas don't have knives. How did they do that? That's crazy. Do they have knives? No, they don't have knives. And so they thought about it for a while and they came up with this idea. And what was happening, there was two orcas. One of them was called port, which is the left side of the boat. And the reason it was called port was because its dorsal fin bent to the left. The other one was called starboard. Starboard is the right-hand side of the boat, and its dorsal fin went over to the right. So you have these two big orcas with bendy tails, and they were coming in and they were teaming up on the great white sharks. And they'd go in, hit it with their fins and flip it onto its back, and then they'd grab its fins and they'd pull it open, and that would create a slit down its belly. And the great white shark has a very big fatty liver, and that popped out, and the orcas ate that because that's what they were after. They wanted all that fat and nutrients from the great white shark's liver. So, great white sharks are the apex predator, except for occasionally. And they basically design how much of the species of fish under them exist. And it's very, very important because as you work through the food chain, sharks don't have very many babies. Great whites, maybe 2 to 12, but the fish under him, like maybe tuna, they can have tens of thousands of eggs. And so if the sharks aren't eating all of those tens of thousands of tuna, then they'll just explode in population. And that means that the tuna population will eat all of the fish under them. And then it'll get all out of balance. There won't be any other fish for us to eat. There won't be other fish to eat the the algae off the reefs. And if the algae doesn't get eaten off the reef, then it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And then the coral reefs get suffocated and they die. Then there's nowhere for the fish to live. There's nowhere for the sharks to live. There's no coral that absorbs carbon dioxide from the environment. There's no coral to give oxygen to us in the world. And so it's another one of those Jenga blocks taken out. And so it's very important that we protect our population of great white sharks all over the world, because they are really getting decimated. And that means they're getting wiped out a lot all around the world. Unfortunately, the fishing industry is killing them accidentally when they're catching other fish, and then they're killing them on purpose for shark fin soup. Some of them are killing to eat it. And so it's just a really, sad state of affairs, but it's not over yet. We still have a chance if we spread the love about sharks. People think they're so scary, but really, how scary are they? How many people do they kill a year? There is about 7 billion people on this planet. Billion with a B. That's a lot of people. And sharks only kill, on average, 7 or 8. Now, that's pretty bad. That's like, we don't want anyone to die. That sucks. But we kill over 100 million sharks every year. So who do you think should be afraid of who? Should we really be afraid of them, or should they be afraid of us? Sharks protect the environment. They're so vital. They help to save the climate. They help us with our technology. And they've been around long time before we have. Over 400 million years, before the dinosaurs, before the trees. So I think we should listen to them a little bit longer, because just like our grandparents, they've been around a lot longer than we have, and they probably know a few things that we don't. And so let's keep them around. Let's love them. Let's protect them. There's so much for us to learn from them. Do you know the names of the shark fins? I don't know if normal people know that. Write it down. Tell me. Let the main 3 shark fins that you know. All right, we've got dorsal fin. Yes, dorsal fin is the one on the top of the shark. That's that one. That's the one that everyone sees. So that's the one that helps it steer. So it looks like it's attached at the bottom, but it's actually got a little bit at the back that's not attached. And when you see it swimming, you'll see it go like that to help maneuver the shark. Now, what about that one? The one on its side here. You guys are too smart. That's right. That's the pectoral fin. And what that does, they shift up and down to help the shark go up and then come down. Really, really useful if you want to go up and look for food, or go down and look for a girlfriend. What's the last one, though? Is anyone going to get the last one? This big flappy thing. Roar, that one. Who can name the shark with the biggest one of these? And what's it called? All right, whale shark, not so much. It is a big shark, but all right, we've got the right answer. Who said thresher shark? A few people. They have the longest fin, and they actually use that fin to stun fish. They'll swim into a bait ball really fast, and they'll flick it, and they'll stun fish, and then they'll eat them. Very, very useful. But the tail is called a caudal fin. That's C-A-U-D-A-L, E-L, caudal. And so that helps steer the shark, whether it's going to go left, whether it's going to go right. It gives it the big burst of energy. And a lot of the times, sharks aren't continuously kicking that tail. What they'll do is they'll give 1, 2, 3, 4, and that'll give them so much energy and so much power, and they're so streamlined, they'll just drift on that for a little while. Maybe give a little flick like that. Yeah, they're really, really remarkable animals. Do you know how to guess a shark's birthday? I know. The only way to tell how old a shark is when they die. And scientists can take their vertebrae, meaning their spine, and they cut it open, and it's just like a tree. Who would have thought? You know how to count a tree's age? You count the rings in the trunk. The same with a shark's spine. You can look at it and count the rings, and that's how old it is. You know? Man, we need to throw some more shark birthdays. I think we do on Shark Week, but maybe you should pick your favorite shark and throw a birthday for it every year, because they get a bad rap. You know, the media, the newspapers don't like them much, so it's kind of up to us to like them because they're pretty special. Did you know? I know I'm saying this a lot. Do you know? Can sharks stop swimming? They sure can. Now, some sharks, like the great whites, like the tiger sharks, like the bull sharks, like the hammerhead sharks, they have to swim all the time because they have a process called ram ventilation. And what that means is they need to swim forward. Where's my shark? Here's the other shark. That is the sound a shark makes underwater. I swear, I'm not lying. So they have to swim forward with their mouths open, and that forces water in their mouth and then over the gills. And we touched on that. That's called ram ventilation. Now, some sharks, like the leopard shark, the nurse sharks, they can sit on the bottom, and what they do is they suck water in. And they push that water over their gills to get the oxygen. That's pretty remarkable, huh? Even within the one same animal, there's so many different types and so many things to learn from those different animals. All right, well, one more. What about the internal of the shark? We touched on it before. What do you think the biggest organ inside a shark is? And don't say piano. That's not what I meant. Now, we have a lot of organs inside us. We have lungs, and we have livers and a heart and weird stuff. Which one of those do you think is the biggest inside a shark? And we talked about it earlier with the sea pandas. I gave it away, me and my clues. That's right, the shark's liver. The liver can actually weigh a whole quarter of the shark's weight. They're so big, and what they do is they store a lot of fat for energy, and they also help with its buoyancy because fat, it comes to the surface. It's floatable. What's the word for floatable? It is buoyant, and so it helps them with their buoyancy. Remarkable. They have a huge, big, fat liver inside them. You'd think they'd be fatter animals, but they're just all made of muscle. So there you have it. Like, they just keep getting better and better and better. You know, there's so much more to learn. I can't wait to go swimming, and making me miss them now actually a little bit. Maybe I should put my mask back on. No, I'll wait until the end. You know, you guys can't hear me properly, so I'll wait till the end. Then I'll go for a walk with my dog and I'll wear my mask and make me feel more at home. I do get some weird looks though. So yeah, what do you think we could do to help sharks? I think it's really all up to us, because I don't think the fishermen really like them that much. I don't think the newspapers like them that much. I don't think the news like them that much. Shark Week likes them. We like them, and you like them. So what can we do to help? Well, they come from the ocean, and we eat stuff out of the ocean. So maybe if we learn about where our seafood is coming from, then we'll know whether we're eating sharks or not. And maybe if we're eating seafood from a place where they fish way too much, then maybe we'll eat it from somewhere else. I think that's called sustainability. That means that we can sustain the population of the fish in that area. So I couldn't do it. I didn't want to do it anymore. I wasn't sure about sustainability, so I just stopped eating fish altogether. They're my friends, not food, as they say in Finding Nemo. And so I don't eat my friends. They're friends, not food, as Bruce says. So I decided not to eat my friends. And now I get to see more of them in the ocean when I go diving. So yeah, the first one is knowing where your seafood comes from. And also, sometimes the seafood shops will try and trick you, and they'll call the shark meat something else. Now, I grew up eating shark and I didn't even know it. They used to call it flake, and I used to eat it all the time because it didn't have any bones in it. Like, it wasn't even that tasty, but I just hated picking the fish bones out of my teeth. And like we discussed, sharks don't have any bones. And so I didn't have to get them stuck in the roof of my mouth like porcupine spines. But yeah, it was shark. I didn't even know I was eating it. Sometimes they call it rockfish. In other countries, they call it hai, like H-A-I. So just be aware. Maybe do some Googling and find out the secret names and steer away from eating those fish names, because we don't want to eat our friends, do we? Well, what else have we got on there? We can reduce plastic. Now, remember when we were talking about the whale sharks, the biggest sharks on the planet? Did you know that they're a filter feeder? So they don't bite anything because, like we said, they don't have teeth. And 3 of the biggest sharks in the world don't have teeth. They're filter feeders. Now, which ones do you think they are? Yeah, we got the whale shark. We got another one with a huge dorsal fin called the basking shark. And then we have a shark called the megamouth. Whoa! And that one lives really deep and they're very rarely seen. But they're all filter feeders. And so they don't actually know what's going in their mouth a lot of the time. And if we have all our plastic in the ocean, can you imagine trying to swallow chip bags and like wrapping paper and all, when you're just trying to get little microscopic zooplankton? You don't want to be swallowing things that look like jellyfish but don't biodegrade, because then they just sit in your tummy and then you probably die. And so we want to keep all of our plastic out of the ocean, okay? Find it, recycle it. I go down to the beach whenever I can and I pick up all the trash and put it in the bin. So maybe you and your family can go and have a beach day or a beach evening and pick up trash and help everyone out. Now, another thing you could do is do what I do. Share your love of sharks. Tell people about them. Whenever people talk about how scary they are, and I bet you it's mostly adults, because adults are scared of everything and you guys aren't. You can teach them about sharks. You can tell them that they don't like our blood, like we talked about, that they don't want to attack us because they know that we're not food. And if you go into the ocean, then just be aware. You know, it's a wild place. There's wild things out there. Be aware of where the sharks are and where you're swimming. And if there's sharks in the area, maybe just don't go in like I did, because we don't want to lose limbs, do we? So share your love with all the adults. You can put it on social media. Everyone loves to get on Twitter or Instagram, or maybe you could do a shark dance like Brian to the Baby Shark song, and maybe you could do a better one than him, because that won't be very hard. So you could get on TikTok and do a Baby Shark dance. What? No, we didn't say anything, Brian.
I'm feeling very threatened right now. Sharks aren't scary, but getting taunted by Paul is. Hey, thank you. One thing, maybe they can do their baby shark dance on their own, but we want to make sure we get a shark selfie in first, so everybody gets a chance to take a picture. Yes. Especially as we get close to an hour in. I think a lot of people want to make sure they've had those cameras handy for a while, may need to recharge batteries soon. So everyone, it is your chance to have that camera ready. We'll go back full screen on Paul in just a second. Paul's got props. He's got masks. So we'll get a couple of great pictures in. So lean in, and we'll actually, on the way out, we'll put all the instructions up there. But take that picture, put it on Instagram, tag Paul the Gelder, tag Varsity Tutors. You'll be entered to win that very shark autographed by Paul, and potentially some extra shark swag. So Paul, take it away.
All righty, that sounds well. This is the shark that you might win. The Varsity Tutors gave me to give away. I had a couple of other things from Shark Week as well. So there's this one, which you can obviously the sound of a shark underwater. Maybe you can give it to your dog if you don't think they eat it. But I've got a Shark Week puzzle. I got a couple of cool things that I'm going to send out. So if you want to get a photo, a selfie now, let's do it. Let's do it with the shark buddies. I got one there. See how, oh, he's a terrible balancer. Oh, there we go. The big scary one. Yeah. All right. What about one with the mask? All right. We might tell Brian to turn off his screen because he gets scared when I put my mask on.
What about that? Where's my shark? Ah, ah.
Woo, it's hot in there. Oh. Whew, it's hot in that mask. I'm so glad you made me take it off, Brian.
Well, and you're right. That was positively terrifying. And now I have to look through our Instagram feed at Varsity and see all kinds of photos with masks. But appreciate it. Hey, thank you for teaching us so much about sharks. I'm a religious Shark Week watcher, and I learned a ton today. So hopefully that whets everybody's appetite for more to come. Time for a little bit of Q&A. If you've got time for a few questions.
Oh,
we had
absolutely.
Tons of questions. So thanks everybody for all your questions. One thing I should point out is we had a lot of questions about the shark attack, but Paul, we know next week's class is all about that. So we'll probably save most of them for them because we don't want to tip our hand too much.
And that's going to be the scary one. So just make sure your parents aren't watching.
Exactly. I may have to put in not earbuds but like headphones and make sure I'm not scared by them. While we're loving sharks though, a couple great questions about your experience with sharks. A lot of people wanted to know what's your favorite kind of shark, and then others wanted to know what's the biggest shark you've ever seen in person. So want to tackle those two?
Yeah. I do get that one a lot, which one's my favorite one, but I find it so hard to choose. Do you choose the cool epaulet shark that can actually survive out of water and crawl over the coral reefs and rocks looking for prey in pools? Like, that's pretty cool. A shark that can walk on land, or, the great white, the hammerhead with the cool head. Definitely not the bull shark. The bull shark can take a hike. But you know what? I just love them all so much for all their variety and all of their differences that I find it very hard to pick. But the biggest one that I've ever seen was probably a 16 to 18 foot great white shark. And I take people on diving trips down to Guadalupe to go cage diving with the great whites. And last year I had 3 girls in the cage, and a 16-foot female called Bullet came up, and she was just curious about the cage, looked at the pontoon on the side that kept it afloat, and decided she was going to have a little chew, like my dog does on his toy. Grabbed the pontoon on the side, and you would think that the girls would have been terrified. They got closer with their cameras to film it, and the footage that they took ended up on the news all over America. And so that was probably one of the biggest sharks I've ever seen. She was bigger than the cage.
I'm scared again, man. You keep it's the problem with being a grown-up, right? So thank you. Hey, and speaking of being able to get that kind of up close and personal footage, I think Natalie was one of the first people to ask it, but I'm sure it was on everybody's minds. As you go to seek out sharks now for for Shark Week, for pictures like you showed us all today, how do you get sharks to come near you and stick around?
Well, it's kind of like training a dog. They're not terribly complicated creatures in their actions. They're looking for 3 things. They're looking to mate, to give birth, and to eat food. So if we take them some of their favorite nibbles, then generally they'll come in and have a look. And we don't do it fishing because we don't like to catch sharks on the face with hooks. So we actually get in the water with them and we give it to them as friends. And hopefully they'll treat us as friends as well. So we bring them in, we give them a little bit of food. We try not to interfere with them too much, but that's how we get all those great shots. And we give people these experiences so that they'll go home with a different perspective. The most amazing thing I find about sharks is that they will let us be in their environment with them. And you can't go to Africa and run around the Serengeti with a couple of steaks on your hips, because you're going to get eaten by a lion or a hyena or whatever. You can't go and tickle a wolf or cuddle a bear, because they'll get really upset and probably do something nasty to you. But a shark, a big scary predator with face full of teeth, will actually let us swim with it. And I think that's the most amazing thing. They're very polite and curious creatures.
That's incredible. I'm glad you're the one to figure that out and not me, because I'd be a little intimidated to be the one to figure that out. But that's terrific. Hey, Nathan asked a question, but I think a lot of people have been asking it as well. But he's the most recent one to attach his name to it. A lot of these kids love sharks, as you know, as you've shown us, is the right thing to do. For kids who want to grow up to have a job like yours, or to be able to work with sharks in some capacity, or any kind of, you know, marine wildlife, what's your advice to kids who want to have an exciting career working with exotic marine wildlife?
Don't do it like I did. Try and keep all your limbs. I was very, very lucky that I kind of stumbled into this career after my shark attack, but I don't want anyone else to have to lose 2 limbs. It's a great job, but it's not worth that. But there are things that you can do. You know, there are jobs with as a marine biologist and shark scientist. So if you study hard, you study biology, marine biology, study your science courses, your mathematics courses, your chemistry courses, all those science ones. Work really, really hard on all of those, because those are the branches that lead you into the ocean world, and working at universities, working for conservation organizations, getting grants to do your own studies, all really, really cool stuff. And we work with a lot of scientists on Shark Week. I think I almost have a new scientist every time I go on the shows, and sometimes they're women, sometimes they're guys. So it can be anyone you want from anywhere around the world. If you love sharks, you can become a scientist. You can become an underwater cameraman, like my friend Andy and Grant. They're incredible. They get to travel all around the world. They get to use their cameras. And I think if I had the opportunity, I would change. If I could come back again, I'd either be a helicopter pilot or a cameraman, because cameramen get to go on so many cool trips. And so you can do that with sharks as well. But then you get the benefit of not just working with sharks, you can work with whales, with manta rays, with seahorses, everything under the ocean. So that's a really, really cool, broad job. Then if you want, you can go and volunteer your time with conservation organizations, because they're always looking for people to help. And you know what? If you love something, you don't always need to get paid for it. If you love it, then you want to do it for free. And so you can start out there. It might not always be that way. That could be the stepping stone onto a bigger career. And I'm fortunate that I get to do some work with conservation people as well as doing my TV stuff. And so that just makes it more interesting. I feel better about the work I do because I'm helping to spread the word about sharks. And so, yeah, there's a lot of different things you can do. Yeah, it's very broad. Google is probably your best friend in this area, because Google knows things that none of us know. So get onto there. That's how I learned about my robot hands and my robot legs. I used Google. So never stop Googling things and try and search for the truth.
Hey, great segue to the next question. To one, thank you for the advice, and hopefully everybody was writing that down and paying attention. Remember, he did say pay attention in science class is probably the number one thing you can do. So, so I appreciate that advice. While we're talking about the robot hand and leg, Michaela mentioned that she's got prosthetics and wanted to know a little bit more about, what are the best prosthetics or specific ones you use to use in the water. I know you mentioned the hook. What else can you tell us about prosthetics and being underwater?
Well, I don't use this one. This is probably the best robot hand in the world, but it's also the most expensive. So it's really hard to get. I'm lucky the military pays for all my stuff, but I don't use this one. There are cheaper versions, which are almost as good. So once again, do your Google research. But instead of this, I use my weightlifting arm. So it's very similar in the look. It's carbon fiber, but it has a big steel hook on the end. And I use that to hook onto the ladder, or I jam it into rocks if I don't want to get swept away in the current. For my leg is waterproof, but it's not waterproof to pressure because there's computers inside it. And if I go too deep in the water, the pressure gets too great and it breaks the seals and water goes in my electronics. So I use a different leg, which is made of hydraulics. And so that's just a little more durable. It's waterproof. I haven't broken it yet, but I usually break everything I have. So they're the prosthetics I use for that. I've got a couple of different ones. I've got a running one. I've sometimes swim with my running leg. I've got a snowboarding leg, which is also a wakeboarding leg. I've got a couple of weightlifting arms. I've got my robot walking leg like this one. Look how flexible I am. That's what happens when a shark eats your hamstring. You don't have tight hamstrings anymore. Woo! So yeah, I used a couple of different ones, but there is stuff. Once again, Google waterproof diving leg and weightlifting arms. Michaela, there's a company called TRS Prosthetics, and they have all of those attachments, and your prosthetist can design it for you.
Man, you make it so exciting. That's I appreciate the flexibility. There's no way most of us could have done that, and very cool that you got them for all uses. And I think it's just inspirational. We'll talk more next week about your whole experience and coming back from the injury. I think kind of inspirational that seems like you're probably more active now, or at least as active as you were before the attack. So that's pretty incredible. Hey, I know we've been at it a while and appreciate all of your time. Remember, if your questions didn't get answered, we got a lot about the attack that came in. We're going to do all those next week. So it doesn't mean they weren't great questions. It means just tune in next week. One last one for you, Paul, and then we'll wrap up and come back for the rest next week. You mentioned before we got together that you're freaking me out again with that fin. That you just got back from filming some episodes for Shark Week, which starts a week from Sunday. So on August 9th, people can catch you on Shark Week. What are you most excited about that's new on Shark Week this coming year?
Ooh, well, I got to work with a really cool guy called Mike Tyson, and that was a lot of fun. I thought it was going to be really scary because he was a boxer, but he was actually really nice. Not the greatest diver in the world. I was a little bit scared that he was going to drown. So I had to really look after him. That was a fun one. But I think the one I'm most excited about is I like the science ones a little bit more. And I worked with a scientist called Dr. Charlie Hooveneers. He has a funny name. Sounds like a vacuum, Hooveneers. But he is a really, really smart guy. And we didn't discover, the scientists discovered that there's two populations of great whites in Australia. There's one on the East Coast and there's one on the South and West Coast. And they meet down in New Zealand, which is at the bottom of it, Australia. But they never interbreed. And so we're really curious about how come they're hanging out together, but they never have babies together. And they barely even cross into each other's areas. How can sharks be that smart and that particular that they don't do that? So we were looking at that, and that was really interesting. And we also tested out a shark-proof wetsuit, which was really cool. We let great white sharks bite it in Australia. So make sure you watch that one. That's Great White Double Trouble, I believe.
So my DVR is set ever since you told me about that last time we talked. I think that's pretty incredible. I'm glad you were the one to test out whether that wetsuit was really shark proof or not, because if the answer is no, that's a painful lesson. But
Yep.
It sounds pretty incredible. So great. Well, hey, thanks for all your time today, Paul, and all kinds of exciting and interesting things we learned about sharks. I think the best advice I've ever heard was from a character on the TV show 30 Rock, Tracy, who said, live every week like it's Shark Week. And so next week, it's not yet officially Shark Week, but we're going to be at this again. So join us same day and time next week on Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. here in California, where Paul and I are. And, you'll see it online. Google's your friend, or varsitytutors.com is your friend to check out when class will be next week. And we'll talk all about Paul's shark attack, what he's learned from it, and on how you can face your fears. So any last thoughts, Paul? Otherwise, we'll show people the instructions for the Instagram contest.
I really like that, live every week like it's Shark Week. But I'll have to go out on the best bit of advice that my friend Andy Casagrande gave me, and that is, don't act like food and they won't treat you like food.
Excellent. Pretty amazing advice. So until we see you guys again next week, don't act like food. Live this week like it's Shark Week, and we'll see everybody next week. So thanks again, Paul, and thanks to all of you for your participation and questions. We'll see you next week.
Adios.